A hidden cave in Malta, built by ancient knights, doesn't just link to the Knights Templar. It contains a map directly pointing to their operations on Oak Island. Far from home on the old island of Malta, a new fire of hope lit up for Rick. He felt that clues within Malta's underground tunnels could unlock everything. Could these long-lost passages reveal the true purpose of Oak Island's strange structures across the sea? Tune in, because the answers to all these questions are right here for the world to know. Descent into the Knights' domain. Thousands of miles to the east in the historic city of Valletta, Malta, an exciting new chapter of the Oak Island quest was about to unfold. Researcher Emiliano Sacchetti had carefully arranged for Rick Lagina and other key members of the Oak Island team to meet with Jean-Paul Mifsud. Jean-Paul, an investigative journalist with deep knowledge of Valletta's past, was set to guide them through one of Malta's most famous and confusing features, its extensive underground city. Emiliano explained that Jean-Paul would lead them into the subterranean world constructed by the Knights of Malta, a powerful order with a storied history. The story of this underground network began in the year 1565. After bravely defending Valletta from a massive invasion attempt by the Ottoman Empire, a fierce and defining moment in Maltese history, the Knights of Malta embarked on a huge project. They decided to rebuild and strengthen the city, turning it into an almost impenetrable stronghold for their order. This new improved fortification was not just built upwards, it also went deep into the earth. A vast system of underground tunnels was painstakingly dug out of the island's limestone bedrock. Rick and the team were about to step into this very network. These tunnels were a marvel of engineering and foresight. They served many purposes. In times of war, they offered a safe place for both the knights and the ordinary citizens of Valletta to shelter from attacks. They also acted as secure storage areas for food, weapons, and other important supplies. Furthermore, the tunnels included complex cisterns, large underground reservoirs designed for collecting and controlling the precious water supply essential for surviving a long siege. Beyond these practical uses, some researchers have suggested a more captivating possibility, that these tunnels might have once been used as a temporary hiding place for valuable items, perhaps even treasures linked to the earlier Knights Templar before any such items were possibly moved to the New World. This idea, connecting the Knights of Malta to the even older Templar legends, added another layer of intrigue to the visit. As Rick Lagina took his first steps into this underground world, he was immediately struck by its sheer size and complexity. He described it as massive, a veritable highway existing beneath the bustling city streets. It was clear that a tremendous amount of planning and effort had gone into creating these various tunnels, water cisterns, and hidden chambers. They were all built with one main goal in mind, to help the city and its defenders withstand a prolonged attack. Rick recognized that the skills shown in building these underground structures were exactly the kind of skills that would be needed to build a secure chamber, vault, or room designed to hold something of great value. The craftsmanship was evident everywhere they looked. Jean-Paul Mifsud led them to an area containing the original cisterns. He pointed out that their main function was, of course, for storing water. He showed them that there were actually two large cisterns, cleverly connected by an archway. He explained that they could go into one and that it extended even further down, becoming a bit deeper. At the far end, a small connecting tunnel linked the two reservoirs, allowing water to be managed effectively between them. Alex Lagina, absorbing the details, asked if this incredible work was done around the year 1570. Jean-Paul confirmed that this was indeed the era of its construction. Alex then recalled the history, noting that this massive underground building project was a direct response to the Great Siege of 1565. Jean-Paul agreed, emphasizing that it was a direct and urgent response because the Knights were absolutely convinced that the Ottomans would try to launch another great siege. There was a very real and constant threat hanging over them. This immediate danger, Rick pondered, provided a clear reason for such extensive defensive works. The Knights needed to protect their people and their possessions. Rick found himself thinking about Oak Island. He and the team were always looking for reasons why groups like the Knights might have developed an interest in faraway places, even as distant as Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Seeing this Maltese stronghold, understanding the pressures the Knights faced, provided a kind of evidence. It showed they were thinking about how to safeguard important things, how to create secure places. The why behind these Maltese structures was easy to understand here. On Oak Island, the purpose of the strange underground workings was not so clear. Rick couldn't help but wonder if some answers to the Oak Island problem might actually be found here, within these ancient Maltese tunnels, so far from Canadian shores. The scale of the Maltese endeavor was truly an incredible undertaking. This underground city was not just a series of tunnels, it was a testament to the Knights' determination and their advanced engineering abilities that seemed to echo strangely with what had been found on Oak Island. The air underground was cool and carried the scent of old stone, a silent witness to centuries of history. The group ventured deeper, following Jean-Paul through passages that had once been bustling with activity. It was almost like stepping back in time. He explained that in the era of the Knights, the tunnel they were currently walking through would have been a main passageway, running directly underneath one of the city's streets far above their heads. The careful planning was evident. This underground network was not just a random collection of tunnels, but a well-thought-out extension of the city itself, designed to function in times of peace and in times of crisis. Rick considered the immense labor involved, the sheer number of people who must have worked to carve these passages out of solid rock. This demonstration of capability was deeply impressive and made him think even more about what a determined group could achieve, especially when driven by the need to protect something vital. The dedication required for such a project was immense, and it spoke volumes about the character and resources of the Knights of Malta. These vast hand-carved passages beneath Valletta were a powerful reminder of human ingenuity and perhaps of hidden objectives. Echoes of Oak Island in Maltese stone. Continuing their exploration of Valletta's underground city, the team, led by Jean-Paul Mifsud, began to notice finer details about the construction methods used by the Knights of Malta. The way these tunnels were made, the materials chosen, and the solutions found for engineering challenges started to resonate deeply with what Rick Lag, Ina and his team had encountered on Oak Island. Jean-Paul pointed out how one could really see the difference in the types of tools the Knights had used to carve the passages. He explained that the local limestone was a type of rock that could be chiseled away fairly straight, allowing for the creation of smooth-walled tunnels. Then they came across a different type of geological material within the tunnels. It was a layer of grayish-bluish earth, noticeably softer than the surrounding limestone. Jean-Paul identified it as blue clay. He explained that this blue clay played a very important role in the construction of the underground network. Because of its dense, impermeable nature, it acted as a natural sealant. This was crucial for waterproofing the tunnels and especially the large cisterns that were designed to hold vast quantities of fresh water. Without effective waterproofing, the precious water would seep away into the porous limestone. At the mention of blue clay used for waterproofing, Scott Barlow, a key member of the Oak Island team accompanying Rick, immediately made a connection. He confirmed that they had indeed come across something very similar on Oak Island. Scott explained that they knew from their work, particularly in the Money Pit area, that blue clay had been used there for waterproofing purposes. He stressed that waterproofing was one of the key challenges when working on Oak Island precisely because it was an island surrounded by water with a high water table. The discovery of a similar waterproofing technique used by the Knights of Malta, an order known for its engineering prowess, was a significant moment. Rick Lagina found this observation to be incredibly impactful. Might the same method be replicated here in Malta, he wondered aloud. They knew that the Knights of Malta needed some effective way to waterproof their aqueducts and the large underground cisterns they had just seen. To see blue clay, a material so familiar from their Oak Island investigations, being used for the exact same purpose in these centuries-old Maltese tunnels was striking. It wasn't just a passing similarity, it was a specific solution to a common engineering problem employed by skilled builders. This led Rick to think about the original descriptions of the Money Pit on Oak Island as it was first found. Accounts from the late 1700s and early 1800s describe the main shaft of the Money Pit, where the depositors were said to have placed their valuable items. These old accounts mention that the shaft walls were so well made and the ground so stable that there was no need for wooden supports or cribbing, which was unusual. The tool marks or strike marks from the original diggers were reportedly visible on the packed earth walls of the shaft. It was described as very competent, solid ground. Could this type of advanced construction, possibly using clay for stability and waterproofing, have been done long ago on Oak Island, perhaps by a group with the same knowledge and skills as the Knights of Malta? Rick, reflecting on what he was seeing in Malta, felt it was more than just possible. He stated he'd say it was definitive. He elaborated that all the things they were seeing in Malta, showcasing the capabilities of the Knights of Malta in underground construction, were certainly mirrored in the features found underground in the Oak Island money pit. They had limestone on Oak Island, and they had significant quantities of blue clay. And somehow someone had found a way to channel water, possibly from the ocean, into the money pit area, creating the infamous flood tunnels that had thwarted so many searchers. The parallels were becoming too numerous to ignore. The question then became almost unavoidable. Was it possible that the same type of advanced work, carried out by the same kind of people, with the same set of skills and knowledge, might have been used to create the complex structures on Oak Island? Rick believed it was possible. He even expressed a hope that, at some point with enough evidence, this connection might actually be provable. The blue clay was a tangible link, a shared technological fingerprint separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years. The implications were profound. If the builders of Oak Island's original workings employed the same techniques as the Knights of Malta, it would not only suggest a connection but also point to a level of sophistication and organization on Oak Island far beyond that of simple pirates or local efforts. For the Oak Island team, seeing these Maltese tunnels was like looking at a possible blueprint or a historical precedent for what they were dealing with back in Nova Scotia. The Maltese Knights had clearly mastered the art of working underground, controlling water, and creating secure, lasting structures. The similarities in materials and techniques provided strong circumstantial evidence that was hard to dismiss. As their tour of this section of the Valletta Underground concluded, Rick acknowledged that there was still more to see in the city. With thanks to their guide, they prepared to resurface, their minds buzzing with new insights and the tantalizing possibility that they had just walked through passages built by people who possessed the very skills evidenced on Oak Island. The ancient stones of Malta had whispered their tales, and those tales seemed to carry familiar echoes from across the sea. A button, a night, a path through time. From one island to another, as Corjan Mall aptly put it, Rick Lagina and members of his team found themselves journeying from the main island of Malta to its sister island, Gozo. Emiliano Sacchetti mentioned they had brought some artifacts with them from Oak Island, hoping to find further connections. Their destination on Gozo was the impressive Citadel of Victoria, a historic fortress where the Knights of Malta had established one of their key strongholds back in 1565, the same pivotal year they began refortifying Valletta. Here, amidst the ancient stone walls of the Citadel, they hoped to uncover more potential links between this powerful knightly order and the enduring Oak Island problem. An important meeting had been arranged at the Citadel. Corjan Mol and Emiliano Sacchetti had organized for the team to consult with Dennis Darmanin, a respected Maltese historian. Dennis was a leading expert on military artifacts, with a particular specialization in button small items that can often tell big stories about the past. The Oak Island team had a very specific button they wanted him to examine. It was the intriguing Starburst button, which had been discovered on Lot 5 on Oak Island a year earlier. Doug Crowell from the Oak Island team presented the button to Dennis, explaining that their archaeologists believed it had the potential to be one of the oldest buttons they had ever found on the island. The anticipation was high as Dennis prepared to give his expert opinion. Dennis took the small metal artifact and examined it closely. After a careful look, he offered his first observation. The pattern on the button, the Starburst design, was more likely a Spanish pattern. This was an interesting point, as Doug noted, because some members of the Knights of Malta had indeed come from Spain. The order was an international one, drawing its members from various European nations. Dennis then added another crucial piece of information. He had come across similar button patterns right there in Malta. Based on their sizes, he explained, these types of buttons were typically worn either on a waistcoat, a vest, or if they were larger, on coats. Then came the most critical part of his assessment, the dating. Dennis Darmanin estimated that the starburst button dated to about the year 1650 and was likely not made any later than 1675. Rick and the team absorbed this information with great interest. This date was crazy, as one team member remarked, because it placed the button's origin more than 100 years before the first recorded discovery of the money pit on Oak Island in 1795. Dennis agreed that this time frame could very well indicate a period of construction or significant activity for whatever feature existed on Lot 5 where the button was found. The fact that it was so early was quite remarkable. Dennis also shared that this particular button design was quite trendy at the time, especially among the aristocratic level of society. The Knights of Malta, being a prestigious order, would certainly have maintained their status in part through what they wore. Their attire would have reflected their rank and importance. Following up on this, Judy, another member of the Oak Island contingent, showed Dennis a picture of an old uniform that featured a button with a similar swirl on it, asking for his thoughts. Dennis looked at the image and confirmed that there was a clear similarity. He suggested it was either a button exactly like the one from Oak Island, or perhaps a larger version of it, as a coat button would typically be larger than a waistcoat button. The crucial question was then posed. With this starburst button in particular, was there a possibility that it could have been worn by a member of the Knights of Malta? Dennis Darmanin's reply was affirmative. He agreed that it was indeed a distinct possibility. Rick Lagina found this conclusion to be very, very interesting. The implications were significant. If Dennis Darmanin was correct and the starburst button found on Oak Island had very likely come from the uniform of a member of the Knights of Malta, it could be a key piece of evidence. It would strongly suggest that someone connected to this powerful European order was present on Oak Island in the mid-17th century. Rick pondered this. They now had potential evidence of a visit to Oak Island that predated the money pit's discovery by a significant amount of time, but the question remained, for what purpose? What were members of the Knights of Malta doing on that remote Nova Scotian island so long ago? Rick felt that this button might be the clue that helps explain what the curious feature on Lot 5 possibly represents. He shared his thoughts with Dennis, saying that they could only solve the long-standing Oak Island quest by looking to the past to understand what lies ahead of them. He expressed deep appreciation for the great insight Dennis had provided. Dennis, in turn, graciously offered his continued assistance, deeming it an honor to help. The small starburst button, once lost on Oak Island, had traveled across the Atlantic to Malta, and in the hands of an expert, it had seemingly unlocked a powerful connection to a knightly order and a forgotten chapter of history. Is this Maltese button truly the key to proving knights were on Oak Island centuries ago undertaking a grand design? Tell us what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.